News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. A man was hospitalized following a single vehicle rollover late Sunday night south of Richmond. The crash was reported around 11:30 p.m. near milepost 38 along US 91. Utah Highway Patrol Sergeant Cade Brenchley said the vehicle drifted off the road and then rolled. No other vehicles were involved. The driver, the only occupant, was thrown from the car. He was found bleeding from the head, going in and out of consciousness. Brenchley said the driver was transported to Cache Valley Hospital with serious injuries. Troopers suspect the driver may have fallen asleep moments before the crash occurred. Northbound traffic was partially blocked while crews investigated the crash. KVNU News Time is 4:06. KVNU weather for tonight, still a chance of snow, 50% chance. Overnight low tonight in the mid-teens, and then a slight chance of snow in the morning on Tuesday. Mostly cloudy skies, upper 20s. Mostly cloudy and back up into the mid-30s on Wednesday. And then another chance of rain or snow by Thursday afternoon. Right now we have 27 degrees at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Adams Wealth Advisors. They want to understand your family, job, hobbies, and goals to earn your long-term financial trust. Visit AdamsWealthAdvisors.com to schedule a time with an advisor today.
We might all agree that a vacation to Vegas is good, but Hawaii is better. Same thing when you're building. Wood is good, but metal is better. If you're considering a new building for your farm or business, let Northern Steel Building show you the benefits of metal. Metal is stronger with little or no maintenance, and it doesn't burn. Find out how affordable a metal building really is by visiting northernsteelbuilding.com. That's northernsteelbuilding.com or call 435-677-7300.
KVNU News Time is 4:07. With the November 30th property tax deadline fast approaching, Utahns are justified in feeling the pinch of escalating home values. That's because Utah is one of the top 10 states where homes have gained the most value in the past year, according to a recent nationwide study of real estate values. Since 2021, the value of the average Utah home has jumped from $435,933 to $530,496. According to data gleaned from the real estate management website Zillow.com. That's nearly a $95,000 increase, represented a 21.77% jump in value, but Utah is only 8th on the list of the top 10 states where property values skyrocketed. That study was undertaken by TNRealestate.com, a website that offers a state-of-the-art property search application and daily updated listings of homes for sale in Tennessee. Of western states, only Utah, Montana, Arizona, Colorado, and Nevada had the dubious honor of making the top 10 on the list compiled by TNRealestate.com. The remaining 5 states on the top 10 were Hawaii and 4 southern states in the continental U.S., Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, and North Carolina. During their study, Cache County Executive David Zook's task force members also found that the Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute at the University of Utah estimated that Cache Valley will need 11,600 new housing units by the end of this decade. And Ryan DeGray with Salt Lake County Animal Services says their shelter only has a few empty kennels left. And with the holidays right around the corner, DeGray feels that capacity will get worse before it gets better, predicting that people will be surrendering dogs to the already full shelters and rescues come January. Inflation and a veterinarian shortage have made it harder for people to care for pets, according to Heather Hone, the founder of Utah Valley Animal Rescue. Many people don't understand what they're signing up for when it comes to pets. Hone is begging Utahns to think twice before getting a puppy for Christmas and instead consider rescuing an older, already trained dog. or try fostering for a couple of months first. KBNU News Time is 4:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
The latest news 24/7. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Hi, this is Ashley with LSS Insurance. Open enrollment for individual health insurance is November 1st through January 15th. Coverage through the marketplace is available with more tax credits. You could save a bunch. If you haven't qualified in the past, try again now. We will help you navigate the marketplace, understand your choices, and complete enrollment. Trying it on your own can be frustrating. Let us help. Call 752-9493. There is no cost to work with us. Having a local agent makes all the difference. Call 752-9493.
Did you build a new home? Regardless of how clean your builder was, your ducts will have a variety of construction debris in them. Debris like sawdust, flooring pieces, sheetrock dust, and more. You do not want to move into your home with that debris in the ductwork. Call the Duct Hunter and get on the schedule today. Call the Duct Hunter at 770-4813.
We are the Duct Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cash Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Monday, November 28th. I'm Jason Williams. Thank you for joining us. Bill Walter in the studio as well. We have quite a bit to get to, an amazing bit of reporting by what's known as the Great Salt Lake Collective. I know, I don't know why they call it that, but several media organizations, statewide media organizations, have partnered together to focus some reporting on the Great Salt Lake and efforts to restore the lake. And they have an amazing piece out, actually out over the weekend. I saw it today on alfalfa. This is a very criticized crop, as we've experienced 2 years of very extreme drought, and the climate models predicting that water is going to alongside population growth predictions, water is going to be a scarcer and scarcer commodity. So the legislature is debating different things like stop subsidizing water. That's one proposal that has been thrown out there that I would guess is probably DOA for now, but obviously an attempt to get the conversation started by one state senator wants to price water at what it really costs, which would be controversial to do, to say the least. But in this, discussion as it's gone on for a couple of years, I've wondered myself. I've heard people say it out loud: state lawmakers, elected officials, general public. Alfalfa, one of the most water-intensive crops you could be growing in a desert state. But, and yes, there's a but, and we'll talk about it later on in the program. The alfalfa and Western States reporting by the Salt Lake Tribune, working with High Country News and a river research alliance of universities that has existed for decades, showing, well, I'll spoil it just a little bit. Alfalfa might actually be the perfect crop to be growing in a desert state, even though it demands a lot of water. So we'll get to that later on the show. Representative Dan Johnson and Senator Chris Wilson co-hosting a town hall. Details on that coming up as well. This is tomorrow night, so mark your calendars. It's at the Cache County Historic Courthouse tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Why they're doing this, though, you're going to want to make some time to attend if you can tomorrow evening at 6 at the Historic Courthouse. So details on that coming up later on in the show. Plenty to talk about in the news over the holidays as well. It's been 4 days since we had a show, so we've got some catching up to do. But first, in our efforts to dial it down a bit, cool the temperature out there, your headlines with smooth jazz.
And if the turkey didn't make you feel tired, this will. This
will tryptophan.
Make you feel really relaxed.
Audible tryptophan. The Cox administration, Governor Cox pardoned a bar over the weekend. The news was out today. This actually was made official last Wednesday, but the governor's admin didn't put this on their list of things they'd done for the media until this morning's. But the entire issue raises some serious questions about Utah's liquor policies. Robert Gerke at the Salt Lake Tribune writing about this, the background on this. During the summer, Woody's Tavern, a 60-plus-year-old bar in Moab, a famous bar in Moab. In fact, people who visit Moab are often told you can't visit Moab without dropping by Woody's Tavern, even if you don't drink beer. Their food is great, and it's part of the experience of coming to Moab. And it was going to be shut down by the state.
Aww.
Why is... again, raising some questions about our liquor policy. The short version of this, it's a complicated story that involves a sewage pump failure and an air conditioner failure at the same time. But the short version of this, the state of Utah has a rule that says if a bar with a liquor license issued by the state is going to close for any significant amount of time, meaning more than a weekend or so, they have to notify the state within 7 days. Well, the owner of Woody's Tavern, when the sewer pump went out and the air conditioner went out and they had some renovations planned and they were due a state inspection anyway, they decided to close up shop and do the renovations at the same time. Makes sense, right? The owner emailed a picture of the poster they put on the door to state regulators to let the state know they would be closing, and had been communicating with regulators throughout all of this since the sewer pump broke. The state, though, says that is a violation of the 7-day rule, and Woody's Tavern will have to forfeit in a hearing that was supposed to take place tomorrow their liquor license. It could take them up to 4 years to get it back. Current owners who have owned the tavern since they bought it in 1991, though it existed for decades before that even, said they could not believe this was happening. They only sent the poster to the state to try and be honest. They should have just shut their mouths, the owners said. The governor's office agreed and said, in the interest of, quote, common sense, we're stepping in. The governor's office has instructed the DAB, as we call it now, not DABC, to drop it. And when Woody's finishes their repairs and renovations, allow them to hang on to the liquor license.
So was it because they didn't do it within the 7 days?
Yeah.
Or,
the owner emailed the picture of the poster to state regulators the day they decided to close, which she did again to be transparent. And the state regulators said, well, you should have emailed that to us 7 days before, to which she said, well, the air conditioner and the sewer pump weren't broken 7 days before. It's kind of ridiculous, but...
They worked it out.
That's right.
That's been around since before Moab was a big destination.
Dates way back to the mining years. Yeah, so huge favor from the governor there. Well, other governors are pardoning turkeys. And Governor Cox
and presidents do that.
Yeah, that's right. Because of Utah's liquor laws, Governor Cox had to pardon a bar. No word on whether lawmakers are going to propose a change to this. I add some leeway to it. But Utah State University has been doing a thing. I don't know how long this has been going on, but on campus on Wednesdays at USU, all their campuses, it's known as Overall Wednesday. And the goal of this basically began with 3 individuals who chose to wear overalls on Wednesdays because it was a middle ground day. One of the founders of Overall Wednesdays said, we don't see a lot of guys wearing overalls on campus anymore, despite being an ag college. So we're like, let's just make sure to have strength in numbers and wear them on the same day. So they did it just as a lark between a group of friends, and it started to catch on. People started joining them. Overall Wednesdays spread throughout their friend group and then throughout classes and campus. And one of the founders, again, told the USU Statesman that after a lot of discussion about where to go with it as it was collecting popularity, they decided to turn it into a thing. They designed T-shirts and even got a temporary band together. Pobev was the name of the band. They perform in overalls, of course.
Is it bluegrass they do, or country, or?
It doesn't say in the USU Statesman story what kind of music it is, but based on the look, I'm guessing it's probably got a little bluegrass or country flair to it, at least. Very cool idea. There's no point to this, the founders said. They aren't fundraising. They aren't trying to raise awareness. What they're trying to do is get students to feel a little bit more like they're part of a community, something they felt was lacking in recent years from USU's campuses. And so
it ties in. I mean,
that's right.
USU Aggies.
It's an ag school, right?
Yeah. So there you go.
Very cool thing. So members of the community are invited to participate, even if you're not on campus. Throw a pair of overalls on Wednesdays and, celebrate with the students being a part of Aggie Nation, as they call it. So, last story here for your news and headlines with Smooth Jazz. Research showing that Americans, especially young Americans, are choosing to be alone more and more. Of course, there are plenty of concerns that come along with this. At first, researchers felt this was maybe just showing up because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but they went back further and further, and what they found is that Americans spent 38% less time with friends and extended family over just this Thanksgiving weekend than in the past 2 years, which blows away the theory that it's all related to the pandemic. Social lives are withering, researchers said. Between 2014 and 19, before anyone had even heard of COVID-19, time spent with friends was already going down. Time spent alone going up more than it did during the pandemic. So again, 2014 to 19, time spent alone increased more before COVID-19 was even a thing. So can't blame it on the pandemic. The Census Bureau's American Time Use Survey is where the data comes from. And the amount of time the average American spent with friends was stable at about 6.5 hours per week between 2010 and 2013. Then in 2014, something changed. Time spent with others, friends, family members, and more started to decline. Even more concerning, researchers said, was when they started to look into age gaps on this. No single group was driving the trend, but what they did find is that teenagers were actually spending even more time alone than adults over the last decade. How to turn this around? Should you turn it around? Has this happened before? Those are all questions that aren't answered by the research. And researchers said they don't want to create a panic, but it doesn't need to be spelled out, the potential harms of trends of antisocial behavior and some of the results of antisocial behavior that can be a society-wide problem if the trend gets even worse. So they're encouraging everyone to just make a point, to spend more time with friends, do things for other people, even if it's just inviting a bunch of friends to lunch for an hour. Get out and be around others more to help turn this trend around. You can see the research itself and the data it was based off of on our Facebook page. I've linked to it there at facebook.com/KVNUFTP. And this has been your Monday Headlines with Smooth Jazz.
Want to stay healthy this holiday season? Want to make it to all those great parties? Want to just skip getting sick? Schedule a flu shot for you and your family. And while you're at it, get your COVID boosters too. Anyone age 5 and up can get one. And you're ready if it's been more than 2 months since your last dose. Keep the holidays healthy this year. Talk to a doctor or healthcare provider and visit uptodate.utah.gov to stay current on your immunizations.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. A familiar face and name recognition were not enough to get some political candidates over the finish line this year. We'll have examples. Also, it's the type of holiday shopping season where retailers aren't just competing for your dollars, they're competing with a potential recession. Hear how they're doing it. And first steps to take after losing your job. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Hi, I'm Dr. Anita Chandra with today's tip for kids from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Helmets are important for every bike ride, no matter how short. Did you know helmets are also important to wear when skateboarding, inline skating, or riding a scooter? A helmet can protect against a skull fracture or other facial injuries. Look for a helmet that fits correctly and that's certified for safety. Make sure you and your child wear a helmet every time. For more, visit healthychildren.org or talk with your pediatrician.
Our most vulnerable veterans are isolated at hospitals. And during their greatest time of need, their loved ones can have little or no contact with them. Imagine having to shelter in place forever. Learn how you can help at healvets.org. Help Heal Veterans with the support of citizens like you is making things better together. Learn more at healvets.org. This message is furnished by Help Heal Veterans, a not-for-profit organization.
Nothing but a slow glowing dream that your fear seems to hide deep inside your mind.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. 70s kids, 80s kids, maybe even some 90s kids. You all know that song, as well as
big movie.
Yeah,
right?
Flashdance was huge. What year did that come out? I forget. It was
sometime early 80s.
Yeah, it was
82, 83.
I know I was young. I didn't get it, and I know I wasn't allowed to watch certain scenes, but it also coincided with the explosive popularity of home video rental. So it was one of the first big movies.
You want VHS or beta, lady?
Yeah. It was one of the first movies that you could, or at least was in the early running for movies that you could rent and watch again and again at home. And so, it was a favorite rental for my family for at least a couple of times. But Irene Cara, who wrote and performed that song, she was also an actor herself.
Yeah, she was in Fame, right?
Yeah, she was in Flashdance too, but I don't remember what role. Fame, of course, she is, right there. She's part of the main group in Fame. But in Flashdance, I'm not sure. She passed away at 63. Her publicist, Judith Moose, announced last Friday via Irene Cara's personal Twitter account, which she'd been operating herself until her death. She won an Oscar and a Grammy for What a Feeling, which you just heard the intro to there from Flashdance, and then Fame, which was never a favorite of mine. It got a little overplayed in my youth.
It was just kind of repetitive. Fame, I want to.
Yeah. And every time I hear Fame, though, I instead want to hear the theme song for Greatest American Hero, which sounds kind of similar. Which, by the way, that is on Amazon Prime for those who would like to relive some, pre-Marvel superhero television series days from the 80s, including the bleach blonde perm on the guy, the lead actor. Anyway,
yeah. That was, now, what years was that on? It was
around the same time,
early 80s, around
early 80s, mid 80s,
like that.
yeah. And it sounds the theme song for that sounds a little bit like Fame. So every time I hear that song, but yeah, Irene Cara. What I was fascinated fascinated me about her is that, and I don't mean this sound dismissive. It's going to sound dismissive, but I don't mean it that way at all. But she was a very wealthy person who was basically known for 2 songs and 2 performances in 2 movies that came out roughly around the same time.
I think Fame was first.
Yeah, Fame came first, and then there was a TV show after the movie, and then Flashdance. And she was so famous for these songs and made so much money off of these songs and those movies that she continued to work. She was a singer, and she acted still, up until at least the last few years. And but it always fascinated me that you could hit that big 1 or 2 times, and then you're set for life.
Little known fact about her, according to the New York Times, at age 13, she was a regular on The Electric Company.
Oh, really?
A public television children's show of the 1970s.
I barely remember The Electric Company's Spider-Man cartoons. I always, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I remember those, but yeah. Her family, nothing has been said about her, the cause of death. She was 63, so she was young, and the family has basically just asked for privacy. But what is known is, a neighbor of hers, who I guess was quite friendly with Cara, said that she'd become a bit of a recluse, that she never really talked to anyone or went out, didn't have visitors. And he said that in the few years that he'd lived next door to her, he'd only seen her himself a handful of times, but they'd talked via email and on the phone quite a bit. And but he said he knew who she was, and always wanted to say something to her about knowing that and how much he loved those songs as a kid. He said he never got the chance, despite living next door to her for almost 10 years. So, as Bill mentioned, she got her start very early in life, and was interested in music from birth, she basically said. And there's a biography out there provided by the Tampa Bay Times to her, by her publicist to the Tampa Bay Times. She was playing the piano, which she learned to play by ear at age 5. Now, obviously, at age 5, she wasn't reading sheet music, but she could actually play. She'd figure out how to play the piano along with popular music that she'd hear on the radio, and her parents said she did it very well by age 5. That's amazing to me. But just a very talented person, but someone whose name hadn't really been heard a lot in recent days since the 80s. So she was awarded also in 1982, the NAACP awarded her the Image Award for Best Actress for a role many haven't heard of, which was she was in a movie of the NBC Movie of the Week. They used to do these a lot, weekly. Maya Angelou's Sister was the name of the movie, and she won a second NAACP Image Award nomination. Didn't win the award this time, but a nomination for a second one for her title role in a public broadcasting film titled For Us the Living, the Medgar Evers story. So, and then the following year, so it was 1983, Bill. In 1983, she had a big breakthrough. She starred in and even co-wrote the song Flashdance. She starred in the movie and co-wrote the song Flashdance, earned an Oscar for Best Original Song for that, and a Golden Globe for Best Original Song in a Motion Picture.
She wasn't the main female lead.
No, she had
Flashdance, though.
No, she had a small role, kind of like a cameo type
and
role.
That actress, dancer, I can't remember her name.
I can't remember either. Just kind of an iconic movie and song, and one that, again, if you're over the age of 30, you've heard and know. But yeah, it's always fascinated me that Irene Cara was so well known and made so much money off of what. Again, lengthy career, extreme level of talent. I don't mean to diminish that at all, but she really was someone whose life was made by 2 songs and 2 movies. And I thought that was kind of a cool story. But Irene Cara, again, dead at 63, her publicist announced, made public last Friday. All right. We'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People. Talk about this really eye-opening report on Alfalfa by the Great Salt Lake Collective, a collection of media agencies who have been reporting aggressively on the Great Salt Lake and efforts to save it. This week, their published piece is entirely focused on alfalfa growing in the West. How much water does it use? Why is it grown here? Should it be grown here? And even some more things about alfalfa I didn't know. I thought I knew everything. That's coming up after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:35, and the news is brought to you by U&I Furniture. 2 weeks after 4 University of Idaho students were stabbed to death in their rooms, Moscow police and federal agents continue to follow leads, but on Friday they ruled out any connection to 2 other stabbings in the Pacific Northwest. Police say they have received inquiries about a 1999 double stabbing in Pullman, Washington. They also were asked about the 2021 double stabbing in Salem, Oregon. Police say the cases share similarities with the Idaho homicides, but they do not appear related. The 4 students were found dead November 13th in a rental house near campus. A county coroner says they were likely asleep when they were attacked, and no suspect has been identified. A woman died and a man was rescued and treated for hypothermia after they were caught in extreme cold weather while hiking in Utah's Zion National Park. The National Park Service says the married couple were on a permitted 16-mile hike through an area known as the Narrows last Tuesday and Wednesday. The 31-year-old woman and 33-year-old man were not identified. The park's rescue team responded Wednesday morning and found the man on a trail being helped by other hikers and transported him to the Zion Emergency Operations Center for treatment. Rescuers administered emergency aid to the woman but determined she had died. And law enforcement was called out to investigate a possible road rage incident north of Pocatello. Saturday, at about 2:22 p.m., troopers responded to milepost 75 on southbound I-15 on several 911 calls from occupants of 2 involved vehicles, a 2004 silver Honda Accord and a 2017 gray Ford Explorer. The Idaho State Police report troopers were told that both vehicles were southbound when they approached a semi-truck from behind. The Accord changed lanes directly in front of the Explorer, passed the semi, and then pulled back into the outside lane. While overtaking the Accord, the driver of the Explorer made a hand gesture and veered toward the Accord. The driver of the Accord pulled a pistol and fired multiple rounds, striking the tires of the Explorer. Both vehicles pulled over and the drivers cooperated with the investigation. The driver of the Accord, a 25-year-old Pocatello man, was arrested for aggravated assault and unlawful discharge of a weapon at a vehicle. He was booked into the Bannock County Jail. The driver of the Explorer, a 48-year-old Ammon, Idaho man, was not cited, but the incident will be forwarded to the Bannock County Prosecutor's Office for review, and no injuries were reported. KBNU News Time is 4:38.
You'll love the holiday specials and big selection when you shop at U&I Furniture. Got guests coming? How about their best-selling mattress, a Therapeutic Serene featuring a zone coil system, comfy stretch knit top, only $399 for the queen size. For Christmas, a TV? How about 50 different console choices from small to large with or without fireplaces? And over 200 chairs on display, including the best in recliners. They offer free layaway and prices you'll love. A local standard when it comes to furniture. There's always a better buy at U&I Furniture, U&I Downtown Logan.
KBNU weather for tonight, still a threat of snow, 50% chance. Colder, low near 15, 20% chance of snow Tuesday morning. Otherwise, mostly cloudy, upper 20s, mostly cloudy Wednesday, mid-30s for the high. Right now we have 27 at KBNU. Whole Tree Care can trim your overgrown trees. Call 435-760-6587. Ask about the radio discount. That's Whole, H-U-L-L, Tree Care. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
This is Ted Karen with Edward Jones Investments in Smithfield with the Financial Market Report for Monday, November 28th. Markets were sharply lower on Monday, with the Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ all down about 1.5%. COVID-19 policy protests in China are being widely blamed for the risk-off mood, but investors may be recalibrating after an overly enthusiastic rally the last few weeks. Recessionary risks are still in the foreground for investors, with Europe still facing energy supply constraints, Asia with restricted COVID policies constricting growth, and inflation globally threatening to slow consumer spending growth. In bond markets, the 10-year bond yields were lower, below 3.7%. Oil was little changed at $76 a barrel, and gold was down to $1,739 an ounce. It'll be a busy week for economic data. Fed Reserve Chair Powell speaks on Wednesday at the Brookings Institute, where he's expected to comment on the ongoing economic conditions and possibly touch on the forward trajectory of monetary policy. The final FOMC meeting of 2022 is where many believe the central bank will slow the pace of its tightening. Fed officials are still focused on bringing down the pace of inflation and are hyper-focused on the labor market. On Wednesday, we get a peek preview into the labor market with the JOLTS job survey released, PCE inflation, while ISM manufacturing comes out on Thursday, and the employment report from the Labor Department comes out Friday. This has been today's Financial Market Report, brought to you by Ted Caron and Edward Jones, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice. If you'd like additional information, please contact any of the 9 Edward Jones advisors in Cache Valley, in Providence, Logan, and Smithfield.
For those who spend their time outside, find the gifts that go at Cache Honda Yamaha. ATVs, side-by-sides, motorcycles, and all the accessories to go with them. Fox and Fly riding gear, casual wear, helmets. In fact, Cache Honda Yamaha has all helmets on sale now. Plus goggles, gloves, hats, riding gear, and heated grips. Even ATV and UTV snowplows. The gifts that go are found at Cache Honda Yamaha at the Light in Hyde Park.
Hi, this is Scott Howder. At Allen Mortuaries, we're mindful of the challenges and changes families who have lost loved ones experience during the holidays. We're also aware of the love, hope, and generosity of others. You are in our thoughts and prayers this holiday season, and we're also available to provide a measure of support whenever needed. We're always here to help. It's what we've been doing for over 80 years. Sincerely wishing you happy holidays from all of us at Allen Mortuaries. Then, now, always.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Great Salt Lake in trouble. Utah lawmakers looking for ways that the state can, through funding mainly, this or that, do something about it. It's a $1.8 billion resource, just direct economic activity. It's also very, very important to our ecology. And also something that, the biggest concern is with the lake. This was already a concern with the lake dwindling in size, but should it disappear, we lose the migratory bird route. The birds will no longer come here; they'll go elsewhere, and that sets off a chain reaction. That, do you like grasshoppers and locusts? Because that's what we'd have left, and nothing else. So crops would be extremely in peril, to say the least. But that would just be one of, like I say, a chain reaction of ecological downward spirals. So needless to say, we can't lose the lake. The experts believe that it's not too late to save the lake, but it has required kind of an awakening on our abuse of the lake, mainly by drawing too much water out of it upstream. Which upstream from the Great Salt Lake includes us, the Bear River region, but also, northeast of the lake as well. Water's drawn from some tributaries there, and along the Wasatch Front. So, it's not going to be painless, to say the least, to save the lake, but it needs to happen for a lot of different reasons. And that's led to a couple of different things. Now, there's two stories on this. One right here at our own CacheValleyDaily.com. Charlie Schill reporting on this, what's being called the Great Salt Lake Collaborative. And it's a collaboration of media groups. The Salt Lake Tribune, Fox 13 News, radio stations, journalists, independent journalists, public libraries, Westminster College, University of Utah, Utah State University, the Utah Division of State History. I mean, this is a huge group, and what they've done is they've all decided to get together in this Great Salt Lake Collaborative and share resources, and then get it out to us, educate the public. The goal of this is to reach a better understanding of the Great Salt Lake itself, but also how we got to the situation where it's at risk of disappearing, and also reporting on some of the proposed solutions to this, including restoration efforts that have already occurred on lakes in California, Oregon, and Washington, to some degree of success. Even one that occurred in I don't remember the country now. I want to say that it was in Iran, but I'm not sure. But either way, it's been fascinating to watch the collaboratives, what they've published, and they won an award. This is the story at CacheValleyDaily.com, recognized on a national stage for the work they're doing. And project manager for the collaborative, Heather May, told KVNU or CacheValleyDaily.com's Charlie Schill, the win validates a unique approach to reporting and research on an important issue, and they call it engagement journalism. So it's journalism, it's traditional journalism, but it's intended to be this this ongoing project that they're hoping sucks the public in and gets everyone paying attention. And I would recommend being a part of it if you can. It's fascinating to read. And as an example, this was published just over the weekend, and it's lengthy, so it took me a couple of days actually to make it through the whole thing. But I recommend you do, especially if you are a lover of agriculture, if you're a lover of water and rivers and lakes, and if you're concerned, as many water experts on the Cache Water Conservancy District Committee are, that good intentions downstream could inadvertently harm us upstream. I put it out another way. Certain proposals to save the Great Salt Lake could be very harmful to quality of life in Cache Valley, and so it's important that everyone get a voice in all this as well. If those things concern you, read the work of the collaborative. And again, as an example, this is something I've pointed out here on the show and pondered out loud during the program. I've heard others do it, including state lawmakers. I've heard retired water managers speculate about this. And it goes basically like this. 2/3 of our water usage in Utah is going to agriculture, and the majority of that going directly to alfalfa growth because it is a really water-demanding crop. And I've speculated here on the show maybe that's something we should reconsider. State lawmakers have it's not gone anywhere, but there have been suggestions that you incentivize farmers to not grow alfalfa, to grow something that uses less water instead. And these are all just ideas that are thrown out there. But you can see how when someone sees this pie chart that gets circulated around a lot showing 2/3 of our water use is in agriculture, and that most of that 2/3 being used in agriculture is going to alfalfa growth, the first obvious question is there something maybe we should be growing instead? I'm going to say no at this point. I knew a lot of this, but I'd never had it put out in the context that it was put out by this collaborative reporting. The Salt Lake Tribune published this first. There's video that you can find through other media organizations, and you can find the research that backs up this reporting that's being reported on, mainly through Utah State University's own research. And I've linked to that on our Facebook page as well as the Salt Lake Tribune story on all this. But it basically takes a deep dive into alfalfa, and it begins with this. About 450,000 gallons of water are required to produce a single ton of alfalfa here in Utah. And we create, let's see, what was it? It was 2.4 million tons of alfalfa hay annually, and almost 75% of that is shipped overseas. Or I'm sorry, 29% of that is shipped overseas. 75% of it is of that shipped overseas is sold directly to China. Not that that should be controversy. Anybody that wants to buy it should be able to buy it. I know China's not popular right now, but the question again is: Could Utah put that water to better use? Could farmers put that water to better use and still make a living? There are hidden costs as well. The reporting goes on. Studies linking Great Salt Lake's record low water levels, and then the dust that gets in the air and melts our snowpack faster, and also creates more bad air days, and is going to make this winter, I predict, our inversions a lot worse. They're all tied to the Great Salt Lake's decline, which is a result of upstream diversions and loss of, let's make this succinct. We're overusing our water. And so should alfalfa be the first to go? Well, here are some catches to that. A couple of catches to that. One, Utah uses less fertilizer in agricultural production than almost any other western state. And one of the reasons for that is alfalfa. Alfalfa is pretty good for the soil. So, though of Utah's irrigated croplands, about 760,000 acres are going to alfalfa. Well, in contrast, for example, only about 8,700 acres of agricultural land is being used for fruit, 2,100 acres for oats, 16,000 acres for safflower. Barley, it comes in about 20,000 acres statewide. Corn, about 94,000 acres statewide. And wheat, 145,000 acres. So by far, more than half, almost three-quarters of our agricultural land is being used for alfalfa, 760,000 acres. And again, back to the earlier data, it requires 450,000 gallons of water to produce a single ton. And on that 760,000 acres of land being used to grow alfalfa, we're producing about 2.4 million tons of annual alfalfa hay a year. About 30% of that, again, shipped out of state or out of the West entirely. But back to the benefits of alfalfa. Agronomists say it's important to keep all this in context because it's a high-protein plant that plays a key role in rural communities in many different ways, but also has broad environmental benefits. Sanpete County rancher Stan Jensen, quoting the story, said, and anyone who's been around agriculture knows this, it's universal feed. Cows, horses, goats, anything. It has a lot of protein. A lot of animals can accept and do really well on alfalfa, Jensen said. But he said, I don't know of another crop around here that would bring in the yield and the income and serve as many purposes as alfalfa. And he's right. He, by the way, devotes about 100 of his farm's 500 acres to alfalfa. Uses about 160 million gallons of water a year, he says. Utah Department of Agriculture and Foods' Tony Richards, who heads that program, also weighed in this story and talked about the soil health program they've been running. Alfalfa is a legume, a perennial legume, and legumes fix through the root system nitrogen into the soil, which means fewer fertilizers, which can be pollutants in their own right and damaging to rivers and lakes in their own way. Fewer fertilizers are needed for growing alfalfa or other crops in subsequent years. 5 or more years of harvesting alfalfa plants over and over, farmers will often switch to corn or some other crop for that set of acres for a time, and they can often grow quite a few things without adding any fertilizer because alfalfa was grown there for 4 or 5 years first. There are environmental benefits to that, to say the least. I didn't know this. I knew they were deep, but alfalfa plant taproots can actually extend up to 15 feet into the ground, which benefits soil in many other ways, aeration and water drainage and more. So you have this big root going basically as far as almost anything goes down, seeking water. So that's why. So it can be itself resilient to drought, but it's also then creating a channel for water to get down through the soil into aquifers and more. So it works really well for Utah's farmers. It grows in high elevation landscapes, low elevations, deserts, desert climates, more moderate climates like we have up here in northern Utah. It's a universal feed for many different animal crops or animal production, basically. And it's also harvested 2 to 4 times a year. So that starts to put the water usage in perspective, huh? It's good for the soil. It's more useful than almost anything else you could grow when it's being used for feed. And it also has reduced the fertilizers that are used in many other states where alfalfa isn't grown as intensely or as frequently, which has its own environmental benefits. So I don't know if this is a wash. I don't know if this means alfalfa is a net gain for Utah despite its water consumption needs, or the opposite. But what I do know is that this great reporting, again, by the Great Salt Lake Collaborative, published by the Salt Lake Tribune on the 24th, shows that it is far more complex than just looking at the amount of water required to grow alfalfa and saying, well, we shouldn't be growing that. I don't know. I don't know anything else that would bring this much pro to its one con. But admittedly, its one con is a pretty significant con. Check it out. It's amazing. It's got visualizations, a lot of data, most of it coming from Utah State University, by the way. The Salt Lake Tribune taking their turn as part of this Great Salt Lake Collaborative reporting group in a story titled, "One Crop Uses More Than Half of Utah's Water. Here's Why." I've linked to it on our Facebook page, and we'll be back right after this.
When it comes to home care, it's important to know you have a choice. If you or a loved one is in need of hospice or home health services, remember that Primrose Home Care and Hospice believes in treating the patient as well as the problem. We work directly with you and your doctor to create a health plan that's catered to your needs. Our team is devoted to providing options in the freedom and safety of your own home. Visit us at primrosecare.com or call to schedule a free consultation. Primrose Home Care and Hospice, your local hospice and home health provider since 2006.
As we live longer, age really is just a number, but retirement is so much more than one. Edward Jones wants to know what you want out of retirement. Working together, you can look at the big picture and make a strategy to help you reach your goals. Because you can't prepare for the unexpected if you don't know where you're headed. Call one of the 7 branch locations in Cache Valley or go to edwardjones.com to get started today. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
When deciding on a Medicare plan, don't be just another number. Expect to be known and valued at Jessup Insurance and Retirement Services. Think about this. When you respond to a national Medicare mailer or an 800 number, or even give your life's history to an out-of-state telemarketer, the reality is this. You will never speak to the same person twice, and they don't have your best interest at heart. At Jessup Insurance, you will never be just another number. Call Jessup Insurance at 435-213-3200 for personal Medicare help today.
Jessup Insurance and Retirement Services, let us guide you.
Magic is found, and traditions begin as you browse the largest variety of shapes and sizes of Christmas trees in the valley at Merrill Family Holiday Sales. They also have Christmas decorations, ornaments, and gifts inside their Christmas shop. Gather your family around a real Christmas tree this holiday season. New location, but still the same amazing service. Visit Merrill Family Holiday Sales at the Y intersection in South Logan. Merrill Family Holiday Sales, making Christmas real since 1992.
One last thing about alfalfa that you should check out. I posted a link to this map on our Facebook page, but you'd be surprised where it's grown and not grown in Utah. I was sort of surprised by this as well. Again, the Great Salt Lake Collaborative reporting on alfalfa, just that. Its water use, demands on our water, but also its environmental benefits as far as reducing the fertilizers that need to be used, which can seep back into water systems. And finally, this is in the story as well, but there is a path forward. It might be as simple as just stopping water waste in other arenas, lining canals, ditches, leveling fields. Unfortunately, to get that happening, the state is going to have to invest. Taxpayers are going to have to invest to help farmers out. We'll see where it goes. I've linked to the collaborative's reporting on alfalfa growth and use in Utah on our Facebook page. We'll be back with Representative Dan Johnson plugging the tomorrow night's town hall